Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Roundtable Discussions Part 2. Wanted to thank everyone that's tuning in this live stream. Even though, again, this is a pre recording. So if you see this, it's going to be from last night because it's Monday night currently over here. Um, but we had some points that we really wanted to go over from last time. I don't think we were able to properly flesh out. And we have the same gentleman as last time, and we have a new friend here that's decided to join. What's going on, Karina?
Hi, guys.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hi, Karina. Sego.
Before we start, Karina, maybe I'm just curious. How'd you find out about IP?
Just I was trying to find out some indigenous information on YouTube, and literally IP just showed up in the search bar, and I clicked on it. Got
Wow, nice stroke of luck. Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, and thanks everybody for coming on tonight. Um, for those of you that might be interested in seeing more people in here, we might have two more that might trickle in. I'm not sure if Cloud will be able to join us or not. Um, we want to get onto the main point of the
You want me
script
to
here.
message him?
Sorry.
You want me to hit him up on Instagram? I can see.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you. Appreciate that. So recently, the Queen of England had just passed a little bit ago, and there's a lot of people that had their own different thoughts on it. I know, was it Crispin? You wanted to talk about that, or Ramo? First, just in regards to like how many, there were a lot of people that were sad, but there are a lot of people from former colonies of Britain at the time that were not so sad, you know. And I think it kind of raises a good question: is that there's some territories of the UK that were under the jurisdiction of British rule in some way, even though they're not called colonies anymore, they are territories. So they do get to have their own government, but they are under the UK. So it makes you wonder if some of these territories will want their independence completely. Because I know currently, right now, the country Jamaica um, tried to make themselves more independent. I forgot exactly what they did. I think it was to remove all connections of the to the royal family. I don't know if anyone else has heard about that, but no. Okay, so basically that's what's been going on, and of course these the countries that the UK took over, colonized, now are wanting a lot of their jewelry and many other things back that was stolen from them. For example, I think the crown, the jewel inside the queen's crown, was from India, um, stolen, I believe. And now there are people there that want it back. Now, what are the chances of them getting that back? I don't know. Certainly, a country like India isn't going to um, go into war or anything serious for for some jewelry. But there's also other things as well. So yeah, it makes you wonder. Was it you, Crispin, that had brought that up about the queen?
Yeah, yeah, because in that meme I sent you, that pretty much reflected accurately the. If you want, if you wanted to pull that up, if you could, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what nation Red Pill and what was it, Karina are. I'm Ganyan Kehaga. My people were allied with the British Crown at one point during the Revolutionary War and 1812, and they sort of kept their word better than the Americans, but not really by much. So the fact that we were allied with these people for over 100 years, they mostly kept their word, kind of, sort of, when we would go to war with the French mutually because we both hated the French. They were the third European group we even encountered, because before that we encountered the French, and they were killing Ganyan Kehaga chiefs pretty much on site. There was 3 chiefs that died on the first contact. So then after that we allied with the Dutch, and then after that the British. But it seems to me no matter what side of the border, US or Canada, Anglo man just seems to lie. So I mean, I'm not shedding any tears, and I'm mixed with Irish too, so both sides of me are dancing on our grave.
But did the Dutch and French act in a similar way, particularly the Dutch, because I know
Dutch,
they dealt with colonization a little bit different than the French and the British did.
well, the Dutch and the French were enemies at that point. I don't know if England and the Dutch were ever allies, but the English would soon replace the Dutch as the dominant European power.
Okay.
This was back in the 1600s.
Yeah, so quite some time ago. But I think that the photo that you're referring to here is this one.
Oh, nice. You pulled it up.
Yeah, I did it while he was talking to us, so I managed to pull it up and listen. So as you can see here, you have a person that's pissed that all these other people are somewhat elated that the passing of the Queen. So you have, like, I believe here's Native American man on the top right, then I think an Irish person, and then someone from India, someone from Africa, someone from the Middle East, and then someone from Asia. But I don't remember any colonies in. Oh wait, Hong Kong. That's right. Yeah, silly me.
Yeah, because that was the communist, the red star or whatever you call that star on his uniform. I thought that's either North Korea or China.
Yeah, it's definitely China. I was actually in Hong Kong for a little bit of time, so it's their other official language is English. It's actually a pretty advanced place, I would say, but I don't want to get carried away. So let's move on to the political ideologies part, which is, I think, what me and Rama wanted to talk about. And there's certain I don't want to call them influencers because I always feel like that's silly to say, but there's certain native people that run pretty big flat platforms, and a couple of them maybe have communist ideologies. So, Rama, why would you say maybe why these people choose this over capitalism or some other form of political ideology? Why?
So,
sure.
So basically, when we're at a young age, like let's say when we're teenagers in high school, the first group of people we come across are the far left. Rarely you come across people who are conservative. And at that age, like I've never even met a conservative teenager because I was super liberal at that age too. So when you come across a bunch of liberals, you're always bound to come across people who are from the far left or people who are anarchists or communists. The thing with communism is that it's so easy to sell it to people, especially people who come from poor backgrounds, because it gives you hope. And the bad part about this is that a lot of communists are not people who read Karl Marx or have gone into an economics class in high school or college. So it leaves them even more susceptible. It leaves these young minds more susceptible to become communists or become enamored or fall in love with communism. Whereas if we would put more economics courses in high school or colleges and offer them to more young minds, then we might open them more to the idea of free market economies or capitalism. The other big part about this is that if you notice, the far left loves to say capitalism has killed the most people, which is a big it's been debunked so many times, and it's false. It's communism that has killed the most people. Yeah, you can say colonialism. Yes, these empires, the Western European empires, they acted on behalf of capitalism, but that's up for debate because they were acting on their own interests as well. They were in competition with other European powers. But let's just say for the sake of it that yes, they were probably acting on behalf of capitalism. But even so, communism has killed more people. Let's not take into account just communist China, who killed millions of people, or Joseph Stalin, who killed millions of Russians. The Nazis killed a bunch of Jews and gypsies, and many in the far left like to deny the Nazis are fascists. Yeah, they're fascists, but they were also very socialist. It literally says in their language, the Nationalist Socialist Workers' Party Germany. And it's amazing how the far left tries so bad to hide that by calling Nazis fascist, but they just can't accept that the Nazis were also socialists or communists. They implemented a lot of socialist policies back in Nazi Germany during that time period, and this is you can even look this up. This is public knowledge, and the last argument is that oh yeah, but if communism is so bad, why are China and Bolivia so successful? Yeah, they are successful, but their governments are communist, but their markets are still capitalist. And Bolivia is not 100% socialist or communist. They have implemented some capitalist policies in their market. And the reason why Bolivia has been more successful than Venezuela is because they had better resource management than Venezuela. Bolivia knew what to do with their resources, whereas Venezuela, they were very irresponsible with their oil. Had they been at least a bit responsible, they would have prospered a little bit like the Soviet Union. They might have lasted like a decade or two of being communist, being fully communist.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. You're right, Rama. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add to that? No. It's crazy to me because, like, you know, I see people that once they find out that you support like capitalism or something, they'll call you out, and yeah, they'll make like posts and stories about it. But my problem with communism, and I think I brought this up in a previous video, is that you know, the people that support communism are very much for like big government, and they want the government to do a lot of the things for them. But the problem with that is, why are you so confident that the government is going to work in your way, that the way that you desire for it to be?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it is almost innate, like for humans to be naturally greedy at some point. So why would we want to put so much trust into government when it isn't very well known, it's well documented throughout human existence that corruption can runs quite high. And that's not without saying that there isn't corruption. Like no country is free of corruption, you know. But it's just, I think it's hard to want to support that when you don't know who's in the government, or maybe you do, but maybe they're not, you know, working to your best interest. My other thing, and this is my big problem, is, you know, I'm very much for democracy. And if you don't have free speech, the freedom of association, and the other one, free speech, association, and oh man, the third one, freedom of press. Freedom of the press, yes. If you don't have those things, then you're pretty much denying the basic fundamental rights of humans. And communism does not work with that. I mean, yes, like we can see China, even though that they are kind of practicing more, having more capitalist values with their economy, they are indeed communist. Like people go missing in that country. The government literally takes them away, and then the next time you see them, they're on a screen saying like, "We're sorry." That's not how humans should live.
Yeah, and they got that social credit system too.
Yeah,
you heard of that?
Social credit system. That's right.
Yeah. That's really bad. It's like compliance or you lose rights. They basically keep like a track record of your behavior within society to their standards. So to my understanding, like if you speak out against the government or you're not being a good citizen, you could lose some privileges or basically rights. So it's compliance is basically assured, you know.
Yeah,
which is bad because.
Wow, I have never like heard anything like that. Like I really have not came across with any information like literally about all that. Like this is very shocking to me. All new.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people, I think, hear of communism and like the negative things, a couple negative things about it, but a lot of people don't really go too much in depth of what like certain political ideologies like truly represent for mankind, for the people living in the country that go through it. And I think even like me, I spent time living in China. Like when I was there, I didn't have access to like any American news outlets, CNN, Fox News. Not that I watched them really, but Fox News, CNN, nothing. No Google, no Facebook, no YouTube, no Twitter.
Damn.
All of it, it's gone. Yahoo. So, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, No, I'm happy to argue with someone from China about that, but to me, that's not a way I would want to live. Now, China makes up for that by giving them their own type of YouTube, their own um, type of Yahoo, their own type of Facebook and all that, but it is strongly managed by the Chinese government, CCP,
Yeah.
to a point where you're
Right.
afraid, like you can't type certain words in there. If you do, they're going to see that. I have no idea how many people, well, I think they even call them like the keyboard, not keyboard warriors, 50, I don't know, something where they have like, I don't know, thousands of people that work in the security where people are like monitoring you like 24/7. If you say something out of line, then you could be in trouble. It's scary. And again, that's not a way for humans to live. Um, I don't want to live in a world where I'm scared.
I think you can even reference I think the Tiananmen Square massacre online. That time they gunned down those college students. You can't even talk about
1989.
that.
No, you can't
Yeah,
talk about them.
you can't talk about it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then you also had John Cena at one point. He had to apologize for referring to Taiwan as a country. He had to apologize to
Yeah,
China.
Yeah,
that was
was-
crazy.
That was some, and that's the thing too. Like, I think how I would come at this would be when they try to insert when self-proclaimed communists trying to insert it into indigenous history, they'll be like, "Oh, Incans are the perfect example of socialism," or "Iroquois are the perfect example of socialism." When I told Rommel that, he said, "Man, if I was Six Nations like you, I'd be fucking offended that they just said Karl Marx said that I'm the perfect commie." But no, it's just funny because where it differs from us is that we had spiritual freedom, and in communism or socialist societies, there tends to be a lot of clamp down on spiritual rights as well. Just,
You know, I would like to say that I don't think the big like issue here is communism the badder one, or is this crazy corporatocracy like the worst one? It just comes down to like extreme authoritarianism. The
Right.
government just shouldn't have absolute control over you, which I mean they pretty much do either way. You know, like in capitalism, they say there's all this competition in the free market, but in reality, like don't all these companies aren't they all owned by like the same people, or like,
Mm-hmm.
or it's very corrupt, you know. But communism is no better either, obviously. But seems like authoritarianism is probably like the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the government definitely owns a lot of the companies in China. Now, that doesn't go without saying that where China came from, like 50 years ago to now, is quite impressive. Even though I don't agree with how they operate in their government, like they went from like much of the country being very poor and underdeveloped to where they are today, to where they have some of the most advanced cities in the world. So they came very far.
Very admirable, I'll be honest.
Yeah, very admirable. And I think maybe in some ways people that are communists try to come from the good of heart, as in they want to see the poor, like less fortunate people, do well, so they believe in all of us being on an even playing field. But again, it goes back to like the human mind is not designed to be kept at living at a state of mediocrity, should I say. We want to better for ourselves, better for our future, our family, our children. So why should I stay at the same level as everyone else? Why should I give up so much of the money I made? And that goes into socialism as well, which we don't have to go into too much. But
are socialism and communism the same thing? I don't think they are, right? Isn't socialism like
very similar?
You could have more or less of it.
Yeah, I guess.
Whereas communism is like a whole structure of like.
Socialism is kind of a gateway between capitalism transitioning from a capitalist society to a communist society.
But doesn't every country have socialist policies?
Like, yeah, to a degree, but not every. 100%. Not every.
Like yeah, so you got a little bit of it sprinkled in there, right?
Sort of. It's crazy though. Like I think Bernie Sanders, this interesting character, he wanted to use a similar system that the Scandinavian countries do, and he believed that he used that as an example of how the U.S. could flourish under a similar system of socialism. Which, in my opinion, I don't even think the Scandinavian countries are that socialist. But he makes some errors in which you have to look into the population of the countries. Like I think the total population of Sweden is not even, I think it's like 10 million or less, where the United States is 330 million people. A country that size can't, I don't believe can flourish under that sort of ideology. But red pill isn't wrong that a lot of countries do use, like you said, there are some sprinkles of socialism.
Well, don't we? Like, I don't think socialism is like oh, you're like that country now, so now you're socialist. Like, I'm pretty sure we have socialist
Sure.
like policy, right? That's how the Nazis were socialist, right?
Right. Well,
It was like
that was more of like
Party.
A socialist, like utopia. I think that's
Yeah.
what Bernie, but which is not what we live in. But we do.
So like
Sorry.
communism, it's like these authoritarian dudes take advantage of like this poor populace, and they kind of sell them a dream, like utopia in society, where everything's like fair, and you have equality of outcome, which is bad, you know.
Yeah.
But I think we still like, I don't know. It's obviously a balance, you know. Like I don't think either one's all bad. Like free market's bad or socialist stuff is bad.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Communism isn't that bad. Yeah, I wanted to say communism is not that bad. It can thrive under certain circumstances. Like I made a video on my channel too, explaining how it can thrive. Like communism can definitely be prosperous for a small community because even you can realize with your group of friends, like let's say you got 10 friends, right? And then like within that group, you got small little cliques of your friends within your group of 10 friends. Why? Because like people, they tend to be more individualistic by nature. Most of us, especially men, are more individualistic. I don't know if that happens with women often, but if you notice with us men, if our group of friends is really huge, you're going to notice small little cliques within our friendship circle also. And this is the same thing that happens within societies. Like if you have a village, right, and the village is communist, it's going to prosper. Why? Because everybody has a sense of community. But once the village becomes a town or a city, it's going to lose that sense of community because when there's a lot of people, everyone starts to further develop their own individualism. And that's when communism fails because when you want to implement communism or socialist policies on a grand scale of a population, it's going to backfire. It's not going to, yes, you might see a jump start and be prosperous for like a decade or several years, but it's not going to last very long as a free market or capitalist society. Now, with what you were mentioning about the socialist policies that many countries have, you brought up a good point actually. People think that the United States is 100% capitalist, which isn't true. It's a hybrid economy. Yes, the United States does have socialist policies, but doesn't implement them to a wider scale as other countries in Latin America do. Like let's say, for example, Venezuela is a good example, or Bolivia, or other European countries like the Scandinavian monarchies that were mentioned. Yes, Sweden, Norway, they're still monarchies, they still have a king, but recently they decided to implement a couple of socialist policies. But yeah, a hybrid economy, I would say, is much better than a capitalist economy because pure capitalism, it's going to lead to anarchy. It's going to be a disaster because you're going to have monopolies everywhere. And here's the thing about monopolies too. People think they're bad. They're not always bad, but having too many monopolies at play becomes a really bad thing because they either end up controlling the government or the government ends up controlling them and having to take over them and using them to manipulate the people.
I think you're right because strictly capitalist thing would be kind of like the drug game, like the illegal drug game. That's a bunch of competing monopolies. I mean, that's a bad example, but it's one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And yeah. But yeah, as far as the whole thing, there was a guy on here, Decolonize Buffalo, I guess, who had said that, oh, well, if you think big populations can't thrive, under communism, what about China? And he was saying they just got out of debt or something. I can't remember what he said, but Rama, what would you say to that? Because like I've heard of the suicide nets at the workplace in urban China. So
yes, because a lot of the workers they work on like so many hours, and we have Americans here or people in this country complaining about the work hours, but over there in China they kill you with that. And yeah, going back to what I was saying earlier, like the whole thing with China, when people love to bring up, oh, China's prosperous, it's communist. Yeah, it is, but it's still a capitalist market. They're implementing capitalist policies, so you can't really bring up that argument that, oh, China is a prime communist example of communist excellence. No, it's not 100% communist then, because it has a huge capitalist market. And yeah, the CCP is controlling all these Chinese corporations, but it's still capitalist.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Thanks for bringing up those points, guys. Anyone have anything else that they want to add to political ideologies? No, Karina, you said this was all kind of new to you.
Yeah, to me it's all new. Like I did not know anything about those kind of stuff because I try to stay away from stuff like that.
Sure.
But one of my friends told me that, you know, Native people should not really have these ideologies that are coming from Western people. So, like, I try to think of it like that, which is why another reason I try to stay away from stuff like conversations like that.
Sure. I understand that. And that actually leads to another point, maybe with Ramo, which was like, you know, there are some imperfections with capitalism too. Like it's not 100% perfect in the system that we're living in today. So would you kind of, I see you nodding your head, so you would agree, Ramo?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect system. That's
sure.
flaws too.
Yeah, like for example, you know, with Elon Musk, like I don't know, it is pretty crazy to see him like make, what was it, like 200 billion something dollars. But but I do agree that this is the best system right now over something like communism. Just in my opinion.
Right, of course.
Because it gives people the ability to move up in the world and not be stuck at the bottom or having to share with other people.
So, I don't have a problem with sharing, you know, as a concept, but it's just, I mean, like I agree with what she was saying that these aren't our systems, although there's some people that would argue, what was that?
I was agreeing with you. Sorry.
There's some people that would argue that natives were the first libertarians, and it's a funny way to look at it, but I kind of think of it in the same way, because when you think about it, people try to say the founding fathers were libertarians, but they got their model of government off Guyana-Regola, the Great Law of Peace, which is the Six Nations Confederacy. So it could be argued that just like they try to say we were the original socialists, I could say we were the original libertarians. And I think, Rommel, I talked to you about this before, but didn't we say that bartering, which is basically what a lot of northern tribes like mine did, it isn't capitalism in a way, just not even an ideology, but just a natural stage of bartering? Or am I wrong about that?
No, absolutely. You're not wrong about that. Bartering doesn't have to be capitalist. It's a universal concept. And the thing with bartering is that, yeah, it's pretty useful, but the bad thing was that a lot of people used to get ripped off of bartering. Like, let's say, for example, you would put a lot of weight into your product, and yet, like, let's say, for example, I want to trade my corn with my neighbor's wheat. Then I would find a way to cheat and put more weight into my corn, just so it could seem more expensive than what it really is. So I'm pretty much profiting and benefiting by ripping off my neighbor who's selling me big stacks of wheat. I mean, well, let's just pretend for the sake that they both weigh the same, because I know corn weighs a heck of a lot more than wheat. But But yeah, just to give you an example, like bartering, yeah, it's a pretty good system and it can be used in certain situations. But unfortunately, a lot of people will get ripped off nowadays, especially now.
Have to watch that mute. Yeah, you have to be careful about being ripped off in certain instances. But I think we wanted to move on to the next point, which probably would have helped if we had a couple of people in here that are currently MIA. But that was, the MMIW, missing, murdered, and Indigenous women. So I guess my first point was, the media covers a lot about other people that aren't native. If someone gone missing, rather if that's someone that's white or black or Asian. But in terms of missing Indigenous women, the news doesn't highlight them as much. Would you agree, Crispin?
Yeah, of course. There was that blonde girl that I can't remember the name of. I don't remember what CNN had it all over. Gabby
Petito or something.
Yeah,
I don't know that last name, but Gabby.
Yeah, there's like 6,000 missing and murdered Indigenous women cases, all while that was going on, and that's crickets.
Yeah, and till this day, they still are like investigating, everybody like on TikTok, Instagram, have like this thing going on where they're still trying to. They're still trying to investigate it, like, on their own.
Well, that, and I believe the place where the girl named Gabby was abducted or went missing in, what was it, Utah? I think, or is it Colorado? One of those places is a place where actually many Indigenous women went missing as well. I think they said a few hundred were missing from that same area that Petito went missing at. And there wasn't much coverage about those women. So not like at the extent of what you saw of this particular person, Gabby. Not taking anything away from her at all, but I'm just saying, So yeah, it's a sad situation. Obviously, the media needs to do a better job. The media needs to do a better job at a lot of things.
Quick question. I'm not too familiar with this situation. I've heard of it, but do we know who keeps kidnapping these women? Is it their boyfriends, or is it men who come from outside the reservation? They go inside the res and kidnap them. Who's doing this stuff, or is it like human traffickers? Who's do we know anything about the kidnappers, or like have you ever caught one, or varies? It could be somebody close to them or a family member.
It's all the above, I would say. But
okay.
Anyone else wanted to weigh in?
But like, I would hear stories that it's mostly like pipeline workers who are coming in. That's what I hear, and that's really sad.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say something, Crispin.
She's right. It tends to happen usually in those states like North Dakota, the Dakotas, anywhere you have not only those oil sites, but then what they call man camps. And they basically, well, you know what I'm talking about. Do you want to fill them in, or you want me to keep going? No, sorry.
No, so it's all good. From what I know, it's not a lot. Like, it's just stuff that I hear around from other Native people who talk about MMIW. But yeah, it's mostly like once they figure out that pipelines are going to be put in, a lot of MMIW will come out and say that this is very dangerous for women because most men will camp out, or like they will settle in there and I guess I would say they'll enter into the reses and like I guess like they'll go out and party, and then in the end of their party they will like go search out women, and it will be like Indigenous women who have their targets, like have their backs targeted.
Yeah. where are the men though? Like, why aren't the men out there protecting the women? It just doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, aren't there men also walking around the res too at nighttime or at parties? Like, why don't the men just step in and start kicking these workers out?
That's a good
I'm just asking a
question.
genuine question. Yeah.
No, that's a good question. Because I asked myself that too. Like, where are the men? At least, like, in Mexico, the men, they just side eye. They look away. They don't do nothing.
Yeah, that's a
Oh
good
wow.
point. Speaking of Mexico, there is like a serious issue with women, missing Indigenous women in Mexico and in Latin America.
Yeah.
I think it was just the other, what was it, a year ago or something? There was like 42 Indigenous people from Mexico that just disappeared, right? Which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, I would say it could be, it's worse in some instances in Mexico, or just the same. But
Yeah.
I think because there are more Indigenous people in Mexico,
Yes.
and because I think, in my opinion, the Mexican government seems to care less about Indigenous people than probably the U.S., but it could be equal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's in south of the border. It's the government not caring, but it's also the point of like machismo as well that has been has affected, or I say, infected a lot of Native Indigenous men into having this really like sick like ideology, the treatment of women. I don't agree with machismo. I think it's not good. Um, so that's just my
I
opinion.
actually have a story. To like, it's kind of sad,
Sure.
but I have a story. Like, it's my cousin. She passed away already. So, but it happened like years ago, where she was in a relationship with a narco, and they owed money, and he was like, meet me up in a hotel, so, and this link up pretty much. And she went with her boyfriend, and the people who were there said that they saw her go in with her boyfriend and a couple of men who followed them into the hotel. They heard screams and yells, but nobody called the police, nothing. And the next thing we knew, she was chopped up and left in trash bags in front of the hotel. And she was left there all night, and nobody called the police at all.
Sorry to
Yeah.
hear that. That's really messed up.
Yeah. And then, like, even my family members, they don't talk about it. It's to the point, like, they didn't even have a proper funeral for her. They just cremated her and just let it go because they didn't want anything to trace back to them at all. And that's pretty much it. Like, that's how it is in Mexico. Families would rather just get it over with, and that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. It's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
And
like,
I think. Oh,
like, I'm sorry.
you're
That's
good.
what I hate so much, because in Mexico, because it's so corrupted, and like, I can't imagine, because now Indigenous people over there in Mexico, it's like not even worth to be searched for at all. Like, it's not reported. It's not even, there's no one. They just go missing, and as if they never existed at all. And like, the organizations over there in Mexico, they don't involve Indigenous women in their organizations, like in their protests and stuff like that. They don't involve Indigenous people or Afro Mexicans at all in their movement. And so the numbers there in Mexico are a lot higher than it actually is.
Yeah, it's probably really. I bet the government covers up like the numbers. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty scary how high it could really be. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. So I think this moves on to a good point of like what type of awareness can be spread. I mean, would you say, Crispin, that, sharing articles and whatnot and sharing stories about, people gone missing, that's a good way, I would say, of spreading awareness. Could you think of any other ways at all?
Yeah. I think like linking some of the statistics into episodes like this would be a good start too, just so that people would have a frame of reference. And yeah, I mean, I share information about this as often as I can, and I do it for missing and murdered Indigenous men too, because that's a whole other thing. Maybe we can get into that another time, but
Sure.
The thing is, my reach only goes so far. I've got more infamy than fame, but I got friends who could spread it around, so I think we all got to do our part.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a good way of like trying to curb this, as well as by like telling people, like, just like you said, this the statistics, and it gives people a better image of what is really going on, like in the world, or in the US at least, because obviously the media isn't doing its job.
And it started in Canada, at least the MMIW thing. I believe it started in Canada.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know it started in Canada.
Yep.
But yeah. So I wanted to move on. I think would be, besides highlighting the statistics, is self-defense, right? And I think this is a good part that you wanted to talk about, Elias, and that was like
Well, like, I obviously know that men are naturally have more upper body strength. I don't know how many of you out there, Native women that are watching, have knives, just any kind of pocket knife. But if you ever, a lot of you think in self-defense to go for the throat or, stab someone in the chest. But actually, you want to hit someone right here, like right in the armpit area, the brachial artery. So you hit somebody there with the knife, they will bleed out within 30 to 60 seconds. And even if they're at the hospital, they can't really save them. That's one thing you could do.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Interesting. That's the thing I learned new. And I'm actually scared, like, to go out. Like, I see Native people on TikTok literally just walking like in the woods, and I'm just like, dang, I wish I can do that, but I'm so scared. I don't have the courage for that.
I got some other stuff I could show you guys if you wanted to see. It's from this book I have.
Teach me.
Yeah, I'd like to see. Thanks.
Okay, so these are some sensitive points you could hit. Let me know if any of you can have a hard time seeing this.
It's a little blurry.
It's blurry?
Just a tiny bit.
Okay,
I
yeah.
can see the body now.
Okay, not much better. A little bit. Yeah, I can see it too.
Maybe I can do this. Let me try and zoom in his solo layout. This?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Wait, let me move in better. There we go. Wait, God, I'm stupid. There we go. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yeah, I can see
it.
Yeah,
I can see it.
So, with the thing that they're showing here with the judo chop, I'm gonna just read a little bit of that to you guys. So, basically, here's one other thing you can do. If someone is trying to grab you from behind, what you can do is grab. So you're gonna try. I want to see if you guys were willing to try something with me. So try grabbing your wrist by grabbing one wrist with your hand, and then see how difficult it is to hold on to someone who works against the thumb. So with your hand that's being grabbed by the wrist, I can't really film it, but I'll try. Here. When you're holding someone like this, work against that thumb, and it's harder to hold on to somebody.
I see what
like
you're saying.
Yeah.
As you try to like rip out, don't rip to their fingers, like you press out where the thumb is.
Right.
It's easier to break their grip if you target their thumb. I see what you're saying.
And I'm gonna give you a bonus one with if you got a knife, ladies and gents. Doesn't really matter what kind of knife, but another thing I would not do is don't try and slit someone's throat in self-defense. What you should do is put it in the side of their neck and then twist.
Ooh, dang.
Yeah. Again, surgery will not be able to save them.
What about like general preventative measures? Like, I don't know the statistics. I don't know where most of these girls get kidnapped or what time it is, but I mean, obviously, I don't want to just say something that goes without saying, but you don't want to go out at night alone. You don't want to go out past, what was that, the 10 p.m. rule? Don't go out past 10 p.m. because after that, you're way more likely to get into trouble. And I guess just know your surroundings, situational awareness.
I would say personally, don't hitchhike. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's
Oh,
all
yeah,
I can say for that.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea at this point in time for Indigenous women.
Yeah, that's what I'm scared of. I really am scared of, like, to go out and, like, experience how everybody experiencing the wilderness, and I'm just like, oh, I can't do that. I triggered. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't go alone ever. Too
Ever.
risky. Ever.
I mean, if you gotta go strapped.
Yeah, at least.
Dang. And what if
There's
I have kids?
what was that?
What if I have kids with me? Like, how do I strap all that?
There's always safety measures you can take. I would have, like, if you have a firearm or something like that, I would invest in a safe to keep them away from it. That requires a password that only you know.
Okay.
Something like that.
And does, like, what is those called? Tasers? Do those work? Or can I accidentally tase myself while I'm tasing somebody?
You know, I've been thinking about getting one. I don't know though. Does anyone else know about tasers? Because I know some people can withstand quite
very
a bit
unlikely.
of voltage. What was that?
No, I was just saying, very unlikely. I mean, you could tase yourself, but the probability is very low.
Okay. I always thought,
Very
like, once
unlikely
you
to happen.
taser someone and you touch them by accident, like, the tase would go back.
I think real nice ones with like good voltage are not cheap, and you got to really get someone, and a lot of these times I'm willing to bet there's multiple attackers. So if you shock somebody, I don't really think if you manage to shock a larger man, the other one's probably just going to grab you. I feel like a knife would be better. Like that guy was saying, like Elias was saying, I think if you get someone in an artery, that's foolproof. It'd probably make everybody else panic that their
If
dude's
there's
bleeding out.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was finished.
He's interested, it's steal this book. It's from this guy, Abby Hoffman, who he was at least a friend of the Chicano movement in the 70s, so that's what I know about him. But yeah, he's got a lot of self-defense stuff for people in here.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us.
Wow.
Yeah, I like
That's
it.
awesome, bro.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so I think we learned a lot about
Yeah.
self-defense.
Same. I'll definitely buy it. I'll buy that book.
Hell yeah, I would too.
Yeah, he wants you to steal the book.
Yeah, I saw the title.
Yeah, but moving on to the final part, which I think I really like this part, is just relationships and marriage. So clearly we're living in some pretty interesting times where the divorce rate in the United States is quite high, sadly. And of course, like, this affects like all like demographics of groups of people, whether it's like white, black, or Asian or Native. So I think we just wanted to talk about, like, why these relationships in this current time period are failing in some way. And my thoughts were from last time was that I blame social media. I blame the media in general. I blame the materialistic culture that has been promoted. So that's kind of my points. I think it's done a lot more harm than good, in terms of like making it seem okay to go do what you want. And I don't know, it seems that it promotes having certain affairs. I don't know. I'll let someone else speak, because I think maybe a couple other people wanted to talk about this point, like what they see. I'm from Illinois, so I come from a very small place, so I don't live in a big city where I see more of this like taking place and whatnot, and seeing different types of culture in the U.S. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
I think with like the rise of like hedonism and general like separation from God, whatever you think of religion, I don't really care, but you can't argue with the fact that we're getting a lot less religious, and that probably drove a lot of the social pressures to stay together forever. And now all of a sudden you can get a divorce and it's normal, and we have a lot more like contraceptive technology, so you could do whoever you want, and you're probably not going to have a kid with them. So like people are just running wild, in my opinion or perspective.
So running wild.
Yeah.
Como animales running
That's a
wild.
good way to put it.
You girl. I don't know.
I
I'm
want to add a
married.
little bit. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. That was it.
Oh, if you're done, I mean, oh, okay. And I was just gonna say, like, I want to add to what Red Pill was saying, a little bit. I don't know if there's a hookup culture in small towns across the country, but you definitely see a huge hookup culture in big cities like New York, LA, Chicago, Miami, especially Miami. Like Miami's gotten a reputation the past few years for being like more promiscuous than New York at this point. It's more hypergamous. There's this huge hookup culture going on that, oh, it's okay to be spinning plates, basically to have multiple dating partners at the same time, and it's being normalized. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it right now, but at some point, I would like to settle down with somebody, and knowing that I'm dating this person, we're going to settle down with in the future, and I'm dedicating myself this whole like only to her, and finding out that she's like I'm somebody just in a roster that doesn't feel right, and vice versa. I'm pretty sure a woman who's dating a guy and she's dedicating or investing so much time into him finds out that this guy he's dating other women. I don't think she'd be too fond of that either, unless she's into that stuff. But yeah, I think it's the hookup culture and the whole social media thing, like Marcus, what you were saying earlier, that social media and a lot of these dating platforms gave us this notion, this concept that we have options. So in case we break up with somebody, there's always an option right around the corner. Okay, you know what? Maybe I like my girlfriend because she talks too much, or maybe I like my boyfriend because I think his left toe looks ugly. So you know what? I'm gonna go on Tinder. I'm gonna swipe, and I'm gonna find a better looking guy than my boyfriend. That's pretty much the mentality, and it sounds crazy and insane when you say it, but it's a reality that a lot of people in their 20s and 30s have this mindset that, oh, you know what? I don't like my boyfriend anymore. I got bored with her or my girlfriend. I'm gonna go on Tinder and swipe, or I'm gonna try and piss him off just so he or she can break up with me. Just so it could be much easier. I don't feel guilty about this. I could go on social media or on a dating app and find somebody else quickly.
Yeah, it only takes like a few seconds for someone to like download a dating application, like you said, and just not be truthful. So I think it's easy for this problem to occur more. But I think in my view, it's just how to curb that sort of thinking, and in some way it might start from the top, and unfortunately I don't see that changing, which is like the media, movies and culture making changes in how they present like couples, how they should not normalize these certain issues, which is like cheating, just going out and just meeting different people and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. Yeah.
I just wanted to know what is the algorithm for you guys' social media accounts? Like, does it show like a lot of busty women like automatically, or how is it on your side?
I'm not
It's
sure.
based on your likes on I'm sorry, Crispin, go ahead.
No, I don't understand the question. Go ahead.
Oh, so like sometimes like
Oh.
social media, the algorithm. So from what I heard from a friend is that she has noticed that for men, as soon as you hit the button that you're a male, you're automatically are gonna get like certain type of content, which is mostly like women, sexual stuff and stuff like that. Is that true for y'all?
Sort of
Mm-hmm.
half-assed.
You
Oh.
what are you saying?
What I was gonna say, no, I think it depends on the guy's preference. Like, let's say, for example, he logs in on Instagram and he starts liking booty pics or like or women flaunting their chest. So Instagram just bases it off of this algorithm. Okay, which one did he like more? Was it the bottom part or the top part? So they pretty much go based off of that. So the next time he logs in, he's gonna see more based on what he was liking more from his previous login.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Karina, maybe could you, I'm sorry, I was a little bit busy in the middle of doing something else, so I do apologize. Could you ask the question one more time?
I was just wondering, like, what's the algorithm like on your side, like on social medias? Does it show like automatically like women, or is it like how Este Ramos how he said it? Like, is it because you guys are liking certain stuff and it's showing that, or is it because you think that officially once you click you are male, the algorithm would just come in with like all this sexual content of women and stuff like that?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I think Instagram, I try to like be sneaky and be like, hey, look at this beautiful person and whatnot. And then like if you got someone that obviously like you're in a relationship with and she's gonna be like, yo, what are you doing looking like, you know, having all these like women in your history or stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think that I don't know if like Instagram has like a secret agenda or something of that nature. I don't think so. But
Yeah.
there is definitely some weird things about certain algorithms. One being in Instagram. I haven't seen it so much in YouTube, but I would say Instagram for sure. Um, but yeah, I think I wanted to go into the other point, which was you see here, yeah, how current culture like supports relationship like failure. I think we kind of touched on this, and it's just like what you see in the media and what you see in movies, music videos, especially. Um, but to be honest, I don't know how it is in south of the border, the U.S. border, like in Mexico and the rest of Latin America. If the current issues in terms of like family separation is more common, I know that obviously with machismo and whatnot, how you treat a woman is, it's almost like encouraged, like having your foot down, a male having his foot down and inserting the control where it needs to be, but to a point where it's almost seen as abusive. I mean, if like a man hits a woman or something, which I think is quite common, especially in like Honduras and El Salvador, where machismo I think has reached its limits. Um, because I mean, look, I'm being like honest. Like, just look at the statistics of the domestic violence on women. It's quite high. So, yeah, that's what I think in terms of the culture in the U.S. and in Latin America. But I think in the U.S. it's not as violent because we don't have that type of machismo culture that Latin America encourages. Latin society encourages. Not the beating women part, of course. Well, maybe in some instances, but this machismo itself. So,
Yeah.
and then, what did you guys like feel could be done to improve this? Is it just obviously like being honest, right? Like obviously, like there's
Yeah.
successful relationships and marriages out there. Um, I don't know. Ramo, were you going to say something?
Yeah,
100% be honest. I'm a firm believer
absolutely.
with honesty. Like I cannot. For me, if I catch my husband like doing shady stuff, I would prefer him to be very honest with me, because as soon as I catch him in a lie, it makes me even more pissed off, because I don't know, like I just prefer honesty all the way. You're just making it
Yeah.
worse for yourself. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I can share my own experience in dating. Like, yeah, I don't have a problem. I mean, yeah, date whoever you want, date as many people as you want. But when it comes to settling down, as I was saying before, um, like, don't get butthurt if you're dating around, but then your significant other is doing the same thing. Going back to the whole honesty thing. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna date around, just let the other person know, hey, listen, I'm seeing other people. I'm just letting you know right now, like right off the bat. Like, I don't want anything serious right now. I'm seeing another woman. Like in my case, like I was dating this girl over the summer, and then she asked me, "Do you have another girlfriend?" And I told her, "No, I don't have another girlfriend, but I am seeing somebody else." Like I told her straight up, "Yeah, I'm just letting you know because like I want to be honest with you." And I was surprised. I was taken a little bit back, saying, "Oh well, you're a man, and as long as I'm your main chick, I don't have a problem with it." I'm like, all right, wow, cool. Like, wow, this is amazing. But okay. Well, luckily for her, yeah, I didn't last so long with the other chick, so I I got back with her. Like, I spent most of my time with her. But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of being honest with the person you're with. Like, don't go behind their back because it just looks, yeah, in the moment they might get pissed off or they might get bothered, but in the long term, when they catch you, it's going to be a heck of a lot worse because you were being sneaky and you were just running behind their back. Humans in general, they tend to take that more personal if you do stuff behind their back than being upfront with them.
Thanks for sharing that, Ramo. Red
I
pill,
can
or
have,
yeah, you gonna say something?
oh, go ahead.
Nice.
No. If they wanted to go first, I just I do have something to say. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna give you guys the floor.
No, I wanted to see if
Oh.
those two wanted to go first.
Okay, Red pill. Are you gonna add anything?
I don't have a take on that. Not right now.
Sure.
I think what men are going to have to start doing, because I do know a lot of that stuff that you're talking about with the femicide in countries like El Salvador and Guatemala, like you were talking about before. We talked about that, you and me, Marcus. But the thing about that is, what people have to realize is there is two sides to every story. So, like, whereas a country where machismo is reinforced through the conquistador descendants and then reinforced by people that internalize it, here in what I've heard some people call the Anglosphere, the U.S. and Canada especially, it's not a good place to be a dude right now as far as dating, because most of the divorce initiations are actually from women, and Ramo was talking about this before. He was talking about how the way women love and the way men love is very different, and I agree. Basically, the only woman that will love you unconditionally is your mom. I believe that's true, and they can love their children in a way that they will never like. Basically, there's familial love, there's the love of your children, friends, and family, and then the love between a man and a woman. To me, that seems like the weakest form of love when you really think about it, given the divorce rates that we have, the normalizing of degeneracy. I mean, even look at the way dudes are nowadays. A lot of men get on Tinder and they'll just swipe right, swipe left, whatever, and they won't go no further than that. And it's like, with all this Tinder and all this online dating, it's like it's kind of stunted us socially. So a lot of dudes don't even know how to talk to women in the old fashioned way. They're just like, "What's up?" Nothing, like that kind of shit, So, and I see this as a uniquely American, maybe not uniquely American and Canadian, but it's at least I can go to the fucking pueblos, like in Mexico, Central America, South America. I can get out of the way, but it's just here, it's so superficial and it's not traditional. And people tend to not even care about, for example, male domestic violence victims, who are actually in the United States, it's 41%. I know that women do get beat more and assaulted more, but it's a lot closer than you would think it is. And like what we saw with the whole Johnny Depp or Amber Heard thing, like people disregard violence against men. And you know, the last time I was on here, I was talking about, despite being Northern, having a preference for Southern Indigenous women. And I think it's because I said that, there was a Chippewa woman that was kind of wondering what was up with that. And she was saying, well, that's not going to help the blood quantum. And it's like, if you're going off colonial blood quantum, I don't care about that. I adhere to the great law of peace, and I acknowledge my Southern relatives. And for me, in the past, we adopted other tribes in even before colonization. So it's not like you would be, even if you were one tribe, you wouldn't actually be of one tribe by bloodline, if that makes sense. So I just, and I factor this in with, even though we've been a Northeastern people for a long time, some elders talk about how we used to come from Latin America a long time ago. We're talking more than 10,000 years ago, but still, it's ancestral memory. So I don't see them as different from us or lowering my blood quantum. So where they're talking about that, like this woman's talking about that, you got a lot of Northern women that are literally having kids with white or black dudes, and they're lowering the bloodline. I know the men do it too, but I'm not dating men, so it's like I can only call out the other side, just like my female friends can only call out the male Malinches. So that's my stance on it.
Nah, I'll gladly call out the women's side, because I'm not gonna lie, like I have noticed, like on social media, like on TV, like they always show like, and I'm just gonna put this out there. I am half Spanish. My mom is a white Mexican. My dad is a native Mexican. So I'm gonna call it out. In social media, they always show interracial couples, but they only show it with like a black person with a white person, an Asian person with a white person, but it's never like with an Asian with a native or an Asian with the black person. It has to be always with a white person. And then so when we go on social medias like TikTok, they talk about interracial relationship, but it's always with white people. It's never like any other interracial couple, and they would always defend it with white people. But if it's an interracial relationship with a black person or with a native person, like around that area, they don't defend it at all. Like they'll just diss it. And that's my perspective on that one.
Yeah, that's a good point you brought up, Karina. And that's also what I see a lot too, like in advertisements, like in Facebook especially. And the craziest part is like you see the comments on there, and then there's like people saying, "I know what you guys are trying to do. I know what this algorithm is doing." I was like, "Oh God."
Yeah, you see it, right? Like.
Yeah, I see it. Okay, so I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy.
No.
Yeah, I see them too.
Yeah, you see it too, Ramon. Do you see it in Facebook or other like apps?
Oh no, besides Facebook, I see it on Instagram sometimes, but it's more prevalent in Facebook.
Yeah, I would say so.
Everywhere.
Well, everywhere?
Everywhere, on TV, commercials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I see it everywhere.
Yeah.
I do see a lot of interracial relationships between, maybe not Native and Asian, but I've seen like an oversaturation of, like, it's usually black male, brown woman. And statistically, when that happens, that is how it goes. It's like in 4 out of 5 cases, I would say. Maybe not in Modern Warrior's case, but
call out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's pegging him. Yeah, she opened that one's from my sister. My sister actually was trolling him too, so I can't stand that guy. But no, I feel like I've seen a lot of white and black. What I feel like I don't see a lot of is native on native couples, like in the media. I see us always being featured as like interracial stuff, whether full blood or mixed blood. That's what I've personally seen. But I mean, the media is, I don't know, it could be different based on where we live. I live in a really liberal state and city, so that
Yeah,
could
I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe the reason why divorce might be high as well, and I kind of attribute this to just the overall progression of developed societies. And I think that when you live in a world where uh, I would say most Americans do pretty well off compared to a lot of countries in um, Africa and a couple countries in Asia and in South America as well. So when you are able to do pretty well for yourself, um, and oh, I don't know, you have a lot of opportunities to maybe not, I don't, I wouldn't say opportunities, but just um, be a good person, a partner, because there's many distractions out there that can not only um, take over your mind, but your wallet and your money. And there's a lot of temptations, and because you are able to do quite well for yourself, you might fall into these temptations. Where I think in a lot of the world, other parts of the world, two couples being together, you're living in a society that might not be the best, I would say. So you're relying on one another to survive in this difficult world. Where here in the US, the world is not so difficult in some cases. I'm not saying for everybody. Um, so you have that likelihood to go into a direction that might not be suitable for a marriage. I'm not trying to beat around the bush, but just I'm trying to sound as sensible as I can here. If that makes sense to you guys.
Well,
That makes sense. Like, it's got me thinking, like, women they can just get a job and be fully independent. So it's like, if they get bored of their husband or whatever, it's like, well, why do I need you? Like, I'm not reliant. I don't have to stay in your house. Like, I could get an apartment or something. But not like back then where, the woman couldn't just leave. Like, she's kind of stuck.
Yeah. And like even now, like I mean I work but I do my part, I pay, you know. But like yeah, like I noticed there's some men out there who don't want to work and they want women to work instead. So like they become like stay at home dads. Like my sister, her husband is a stay at home dad. And like here my family, like in Hispanic culture, that's really frowned upon. And like he would always get called like, oh, he's just being lazy, he's a lazy man. And I'm just like, dang, that's hard work. Like i I support all the way that he's a stay-at-home dad. He's like a really good dad to his girls. I don't know. I love that men are willing to become like stay-at-home dads. I love it. I'm living for it because that shit is hard to become like a stay-at-home dad. It's a whole different perspective, and I love that.
Yeah, I remember the first time I had met someone where back in high school, and his dad was a stay-at-home dad. Yeah, because I guess the mom was like a doctor, and she was extremely busy. So it was like, wow, it was like the first time I've ever like heard of that or seen of that before. So it was crazy to me. But hold on, Ramon's back in.
so
But hey, we're just talking about stay-at-home dads. But yeah, I mean, I think if society doesn't normalize these temptations, then obviously we as just people living in this country, not even just Native people, but everyone can do better. I don't know, maybe they think that sort of behavior is all in nowadays. But
yeah.
obviously, I don't agree with that. We have one other guest that we're waiting to join in the last very part of this video.
Phoenix?
Huh? I wish it was Phoenix. Well, I mean, not that I'm disappointed with who will be joining us, but
Damn.
yeah, no, I'm not. But the other part here, which is kind of close to the end, which is like men going their own way, and I believe who brought that up? It was Crispin, right? I mean, it's Elias. Apologize.
Yeah, I hate the name Crispin, but that is what most people know me as. But anyway, no, so it's basically these straight dudes, mostly straight, not entirely, but who want nothing to do with women. Like they don't want to date them. It's basically people that live in the U.S. or Canada. Sometimes we're not going to count the U.K. because they're not part of the native equation here, but it's popular out there too. But basically anywhere where English is the first language, this kind of shit is normal. Fuck, Rommel had kind of a better understanding of MGTOW than I did in some ways because he had a video called MGTOW Shouldn't Be Forever. My whole thing on that is what I take from it is I don't believe that a man needs a woman to be happy. He should learn to be happy on his own because what I was talking about earlier with love can fade over time, and it usually does. So I don't really see much point in being in that kind of relationship if I am going to be in that kind of relationship. And looking around, that's pretty much guaranteed. Maybe I'm being a little cynical, but I'm also looking at it like I'm being realistic. So before that person on the server had wondered why I had said what I had said, it's because I know that this country is very hypergamous now, and I feel like with an American citizen or a Canadian citizen where the divorce rate is astronomically higher, and there is a religious reason for this too. The difference between Latin America and the Anglosphere is that down there, when it comes to Christianity, you guys are more Catholic, and in the North, it's Protestant. And the whole point of Protestantism, at least a lot of it was the ability to divorce your wife or husband or whatever. The King of England literally wrote the King James Bible so that he could. Like he came up with his own church, the Anglican Church, and that's the church that colonized my people. But yeah, I think it's more prevalent in all Protestant countries that are Protestant majority, more so than Catholic. Because Catholics believe that if you get remarried, it's adultery. So, you know, there's that aspect of it too.
I did not know that in Catholic that's how it was viewed. Like, because I wasn't raised Catholic, but I think my grandma was. But I didn't know that at all. I was raised Christian.
So was I.
That's interesting that you were raised Christian instead, because most people of Mexican descent in the U.S. I know are usually Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
That I met.
I was raised Catholic.
Oh, you were?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wizards and all in their robes.
Oh,
Oh, he
got him. No, I'm kidding.
So was Rommel.
The wizards got him. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting for us, like adoptees as well, because or for native adoptees, I guess you could say, is because a lot of families, our adoptive families, are very Christian. So I was raised in a fairly Christian household as well. But it makes me wonder if, regardless of what type of religion you have, do you feel that, like, even if it's Catholicism or Christianity, would you say it helps keep a family together in some instances? Or would you say that it's best to not associate that with family? No?
No, I'm not a Christian. I think, like, when I was little, I always knew there was something wrong with that religion. And now that I'm older, I'm not religious at all. My husband's not, he didn't grow up religious. Well, from what I heard, my husband, he was raised as a Christian, they just didn't go to church. But he was raised with those ideas in his head. Yeah, so like pretty much that's how it went down. But right now, me and my husband, I feel like our relationship is way stronger than my parents and his parents. Like, I'm gonna air out my husband's his parents dirty laundry, I guess. But like they feel like they need to stay together for the family, and so they're staying together until they finish raising their last kid, and that's it. They're done, and I think one of them is planning to go back to his home country. Yeah, his dad, he's waiting to go back to El Salvador, right? Yeah, he wants to go. My husband said he's planning on dying in El Salvador. Like that's his dream to go back and retire. Like he's so excited. He's like really into like gardening, so he's like he wants to go back, but he wants to finish raising his daughter first, and that's it. And then for my mom, I think like my dad cheated, so my mom like literally left, and that was it. So like my and my husband's relationship is so much stronger than their relationship, and I definitely believe it's because we're not religious at all. We're straight up honest with everything. Everything is split 50-50. We both work. Yeah, we respect our opinions and everything. Yeah, and our kids are happy too.
Yeah, you guys sound really happy. So
yeah, no, our kids. Oh my God, my son, he asked me about like when we die, do we go in the sky and become angels? And I was like, who told you that? That's a lie. And I told him straight up, we just rot in the dirt. He's like, oh no, I want to be an angel. I was just like, okay, fine, you can be an angel.
I mean, I was raised Christian. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was wondering what you were gonna say.
I was raised Christian. Now I'm trying to lean more towards the traditional ways. So I definitely do believe in an afterlife. In fact, I'm not going to go into it here right now at this moment because it's pretty fresh, but I had a spiritual encounter after thinking for so long that like a lot of my friends talk about it too. Like their own, I don't want to say ghost stories, but encounters with spirits. And because it didn't happen to me, I have a whole I'll believe it when I see it attitude about most things. But I saw something, and let's just say I think it's either one of my female relatives that I never knew or a male relative that I did know. But it's got me spooked. I'm not going to get into it right now. It's nothing like bad. It's not a bad spirit, but it's just, whoa, you know, it's just, it hit me like a hurricane. And so I believe even if we do rot in the ground, what happens after that? We become eaten by the worms. They get eaten by the birds, or if you don't get buried and you just get cremated, then you become back into the carbon ashes, and that too creates life. We are carbon-based life forms. So my ancestors basically believed that the stars themselves are where our dead ancestors went to, and you can justify that on a scientific level too, in that we are carbon-based life forms. So
I respect that.
Yeah.
And I wish I had like a spiritual awakening, because like I would hear stories about like stuff like that, and like even for me and my sister, we had encountered like spiritual stuff, and my mom, she used to bring the priest to get rid of it because we were like so scared, like when we were kids. So like to this day, like I always wonder like what it was and stuff like that. But like I respect that totally. Like I hope one day that I can go through all that when I reconnect with my nation and learn their ways, and that's what I'm hoping for.
I hope that for you. I hope that happens for you. I have to do that too. I mean, I'm on the wrong coast.
Same here. I'm in the wrong continent.
Yeah, our homes or I guess our birth homes are in the South.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've had one of those types of encounters yet with spirits.
You probably did, and they just didn't tell you.
It's scary.
Probably. Yeah.
Rumble. Weren't you a Catholic where I met you?
Yes. And you convinced me out of it. I give you credit for that.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to do that. He's like one of two Mexican guys that have said that I'm the reason they're not anymore. But what intrigued me about that is, didn't you have to say you had to sign a bunch of stuff to leave or something?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, you're right. Like, to basically leave the church, or to be excommunicated, you do have to sign a couple of papers, and you have to pay them a fine, I think, to be officially excommunicated, which seems kind of dumb. Like, I thought you could just leave the church at your own leisure, but I mean, what the heck? I haven't done it. I don't really care. I mean, going back to what Marcus was saying, can religion save families? Yes, it can to a certain point, but it depends on the community. It depends on the individual as well. Because you have a bunch of Muslim families nowadays, and their daughter or their sons are having premarital sex behind their back. So people are sneaking behind each other's backs at this point. And same with Christians and Catholics. We've been doing that for a couple generations, but now it's the Muslims who've been doing that for like the past 2 generations. Like in high school, some Muslim girl has a boyfriend, or some Muslim kid has a girlfriend. They start having premarital sex, which is considered haram. So it just comes down to the individual, like whatever religion works. Or if religion doesn't make their life better, then they're better off just being atheist or agnostic. I mean, I'm not anti-religion either. I mean, if religion makes you a better person, despite the fact what the Bible or the Quran says, I mean, so be it. I mean, practice a religion without taking into consideration the bad stuff from those holy books. Like, take what's good, take what benefits your life and improves your lifestyle, and leave the bad out. Or if you're going to be agnostic, yeah, that's cool. I mean, if you're a good person being agnostic or atheist, go right ahead.
I like that how you say it, that, because like even for me, I was raised Christian. I was taught wait until the right guy, you know, and stuff like that. And I'm happy. And even like my mom would be like, you can't do drugs because of our religion and other stuff like drinking. And I'm so happy that I'm not a drinker and all that. And like for my husband, you know, his family is like, his dad's an alcoholic, and I personally feel like my husband's gonna turn into an alcoholic, and I'll tell him, you know, he drinks every day. That's what he said. But yeah, like even with that, I would tell my mom, I'm so thankful that you raised me, because I'm not a smoker, I'm not a drinker, I didn't go out and be wild and crazy and all that, and I'm so happy that that's how you raised me, and it was because she was a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important, is having having a caring mother and father, you know, in your world, that can tell you from right from wrong. Because definitely in certain areas in the United States, like people grow up without a mom or dad or both, or they're just very uncaring people. So it's very hard to have a good moral understanding of right from wrong, when you don't have that father or mother figure there to teach you. So I think that kind of connects to like the current like culture that normalizes certain things, such as like temptations and whatnot, which again can ruin relationships or marriages, and then it's just like a repeating cycle of, you know, two people meet each other, they have a kid, and the kid doesn't have like a good father or mother figure. And it's an unfortunate cycle in less fortunate areas in the United States, like inner city areas, for example. But yeah, it's a really great conversation we could have about that. And I think the final part of this would be the end, which is just like north and south. Oh, I did want to add one point. I think that the main issue with like why marriages are decreasing, in the United States, it does go back to like living in a first world. I don't like to use that word, but just like very developed country. And I think, I've brought this up before, and that is when you live in a world where you're in a developed country and you have a lot of money to spend. There's a lot of options out there which you would not get in a less developed country. And you're like a single man or something, and you have a pretty good job. You can do all these things, and you're in your 20s. You're like, oh, why do I want to settle down right now when I can go out and do what I want until like, I don't know, my 30s or 40s or whenever, how old, and perhaps that is the same with women as well. I'm just saying this from what I see in men and their behavior. So when you have that kind of incentivized and it's promoted in the media and whatnot, then you start to see like less the percentage of marriages. And oh, look, Plucky's here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
What's going on, Pluck?
Hey, sorry, last minute. Just late as usual. I tend to be late
It's
for
all good.
All good. Where's the
Very
kid?
good.
What happened to the kid?
Red pill.
Yeah.
Oh, red pill. Oh yeah, he had to sign out. He was having technical issues. But Plucky, we were just talking about like relationships and why like marriages and whatnot, some of them fail in this like society, and I blamed it a lot on like the culture and like the temptations that are normalized. And then we try to like think of like solutions, and that is just like having good parents, a good father, mother figure, and even in some instances religion as well.
Well, even with, if you want my 2 cents, like just to summarize, like I can say a lot of things on this topic. It's kind of pretty much my domain. So what I would say is, even with everything, like we try to like, let's say, combat this. What is it? The divorce rate? No, just relationships in general.
Yeah, or divorce rate, but yeah, both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the lack of marriage and like the high percentage of just divorces, specifically just talking about the West, right?
Yeah.
So what I would say is, like, even if you address everything, like there's still one thing that will still trump every problem, which is like each individual, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual relationship, whether it's man, girl, boy, boy, whatever, right? It still comes down to like, I feel like people don't have like a good head under shoulder on like understanding what marriage is. Like it's a partnership, right? It's like a teamwork. It's like a team. You're pretty much the best way I can put it is, think of it like if you're getting into a marriage, you're joining like like I use basketball a lot, so like you're joining a franchise, like a team, and your teammates. It's on you and your teammates to determine whether you guys make it to the finals, right? So people tend to forget, like that's what the whole thing's about. It's like you need to compromise, you need to make deals with each other, figure out who's better with doing what, and like try to push each other up to like to succeed. And many people who, from what I understand, who gets into marriage, that like gets into a failed marriage, they tend to have like selfish tendencies. So they always think about like me first, like what can you give me? What can you give me this? Can you give me that? Whether from a woman's perspective, like can you give me a house? Can you provide? From a man's perspective, can you give me love? Can you give me loyalty or what have you, right? That's why I see like many marriage tends to fail, because the two individuals tend to be in that same mindset, instead of actually thinking of like, what can I do for you, and what can I improve for you. And that's why I see like every, like even you like fixed everything, like whether it be be more traditional, having less bodies, or picking the right person in the right setting, right? Sometimes you just pick a girl from like the bar and you kind of, I guess, quote unquote, fall for each other or something, whatever it may be. With all of that, it still comes down to like people don't have the right idea of what marriages are. Like they need to know like it's a teamwork. It's not necessarily once you're in. It's not necessarily how you two can. It's like how do I put it? It's like it's no more me anymore. No more like think about myself. It's like what can we do? Because usually when you get in a marriage, usually tends to like ideally you want us to have kids, right? Usually that's what it leads up to. I mean, obviously you have marriages, but then I don't see that being successful either unless you're having just a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like so like usually you tend to have like it leads to like marriage leads to like having kids, and when once kids are involved, that's where like that's like the next stepping stone where like all right, this is literally like it doesn't matter about the parents, it's all about the kid. So like that's how I see it. And like um I don't know, I mean like look at the successful marriages, right? Usually we determine them by like how old the old people who are still married, right? And usually they already have kids, grandkids, and all that. So it's just a result of their successful marriage, and successful marriage usually ends up with children. I don't see any successful in marriages that they don't have children. I mean, am I wrong? I mean, usually that's like the indication of a good marriage. I mean, like not obviously, kids who have divorce and all that. I'm talking about like if you look at the successful marriage people, they tend to be older folks, right? That's what we look up to and try to get advice from, right? They tend to have already experienced life already, and that experience consists of having children as well. It's just my two cents on that.
Yeah.
Just catching up. so
I'm gonna come back to this video and hear you again because I don't know. I kind of like the message that you were putting out there that marriages, the analogy that you were using with basketball, it's pretty much a partnership. It's a union. You're not gonna look out for you anymore. You're gonna look out for this other person that you're gonna make your lifetime friend, your lifetime partner in crime, or your lifetime business partner. Basically, was what you were saying, right? But you were using a basketball analogy.
exactly. It's just
Yeah.
the reason why I use basketball analogies because like you can still be the top scorer, but your team can still lose. Like each game you can lose, but you can still be making triples every night. And
Yeah.
so it's like it comes down to that. That's if I had to say anything, if I only have to say one thing, that's the one thing I would say.
I think that and kind of what Kareen had said earlier, and we all kind of agreed with, was also just being honest as well. No, someone like wants your phone to look at and then give it to her or him, I guess. I mean, if you're in that sort of like serious relationship.
Wait. I hate that thing so much. Like the whole phone thing. Like, give me your phone.
Oh,
I hate that.
yeah. Well, it makes because it's what makes you like say. I'm just curious. Like, say that just you feel like it's an invasion of privacy, right? Or you feel like they don't trust you in some way if someone says that.
Yeah, like it's insane because like I mean I'm not hiding nothing. So like
Sure.
if my husband wants to use my phone, I'll be like, yeah, here, use my phone. But I've seen people where they like react and be like, why do you want my phone? Why are you trying to look at my phone? And I'm just like, oh, okay, trying to hide something.
Yeah. Right. And that's the problem in the current society compared to like what 60 years ago, where this sort of like thing wasn't an issue at all because it didn't exist. Where now, like you said, like if you get like defensive and you're like, oh, so what are you hiding on your phone? Like who's messaging you on like Facebook or something of that nature, right?
I do that with my husband, like just joking around. When I see him like smiling on the phone because he's looking at like some jokes, and I'll be like, "Who are you talking to on the phone?" He's like, "Nobody." I'm like, "Let me see your phone." He's like, "Are you being serious?" I'm like, "No, I'm not being serious."
Like who's making you laugh?
Yeah, I did that to him yesterday.
Yeah.
I just like pranks with my husband. He's such an easy target.
That's good. He takes the jokes well.
Yeah.
Or I assume he does.
No, he doesn't like it.
Well,
Because he thinks I'm such a great actor. He's like, nah, your face looks too serious. No, I can't. Don't do that no more.
guess he just has to live with it then. Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, I think we want to talk about like North-South relations, but I think that was pretty much covered up. Like there's clear like similarities and differences between, in this world and then south of the border in Latin America. I think, in my opinion, like the violence towards women is more apparent in South America than in the United States, and just from what I see with my eyes. Um, but I guess what else do we want to say? We talked about men going their own way. I don't know.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I wanted to hear Rommel's take on that.
Oh yeah, so MGTOW, like I made a video a while back in my YouTube channel. I was basically saying how MGTOW should be a temporary phase in men. I don't think men should stay in that phase forever. It's kind of detrimental, not in the sense of men are going to be alone forever. I mean, men for the most part, we can be alone to a certain degree, but when you're MGTOW for a pretty long time, you run the risk of hating women or ending up being a woman hater if you're in that phase for too long. So what I'm saying is, if you're gonna go MGTOW, go at it for like a couple months to a year. Just focus on yourself. Focus on improving yourself as a man. Just to focus on increasing your value, and not do it all because I'm gonna get laid. That's the worst reason to improve yourself. It should be for you to leave a legacy behind. But if you're gonna go MGTOW even after the fact that you improved yourself or used that time to go monk mode, you're gonna end up hating women if you go at it for too long, because you're gonna be alone for a long time and not dating anybody. You're not gonna see anybody, and then what's gonna happen is that you're gonna have this social anxiety building up. You're gonna have problems socializing with people, and so when you go out there and you start socializing again, you get back into the dating game. And you start socializing with women, and they start rejecting you every time because you're not socially capable of connecting with them. You're going to start to hold a lot of resentment towards them. And that's the thing, that's the warning. That's what I'm trying to warn a lot of guys. Like, don't go MGTOW for too long, because then it just comes to a certain point where you just become this social oddball, and you just have a hard time socializing with people, socializing with everybody. You got to expose yourself too. Like, you got to go out there and build up that social muscle. You have to talk to people. Like, even if it's hard, at least try to talk to the owner of the deli, like, or try to talk to your neighbor once in a while, or like just try to talk to somebody random. Like, just try to build up the social muscle is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Ramo.
Yeah.
And I agreed with you though at one point that you had made. I think it was outside of this, was just like, if like a man is having some like serious issues, it is good to grow and just take some time away from certain addictions, that's pornography or something.
Yeah.
And just staying away from like women and just keeping to yourself, like you said, like a month or something, right? Because a lot of men, in my opinion, sometimes are hesitant to reach out for like help, whether that's your therapist or a psychologist, or it's the other one I'm thinking of, or a counselor or something. I think it kind of has to do with like saving face and not wanting to appear like somewhat weak. So I think it's just making sure that you're just taking time for yourself, because you're not willing to go out and seek help. You need to put more time and focus on the help, just by not like you had just said, Ramo, just not associating with anything, and improving your own health.
Yeah.
If you aren't willing to go seek it.
May I add something?
Sure. Yeah.
Because you guys were talking about MGTOW, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I might out myself here a bit. I'm part of a MGTOW group community. I'm well versed in like this whole red pill stuff, manosphere stuff, right?
Sure.
So there's good things and bad things about the MGTOW stuff, and red pill stuff and the black pill and the whole manosphere. Like the the foundation of it is good because, like, from what I understand, MGTOW tends to be, even though it might appear misogynistic, the foundation essentially is just improving, self-improvement,
Yeah.
in, like, a man's way, to focus on himself, as whether it be on every aspect, physically, mentally, financially, and that's it. And don't get distracted with women, right? Now you have that's the main foundation of it. But then now you have, the people, usually people who seek for this tend to be like, are lost, right? Like they're like, they haven't, I
Right.
mean, it's essentially revolve around men being their own person and somehow kind of like evading women. Men, I'm gonna call them men, but like I'm calling boys, right? These boys that follow this, they are still boys. Like they're immature, pretty much. So they're not fully, like, they're coming, especially like the next generations, the younger generations, whether it's like the second half millennials and the entire of Gen Z.
Yeah.
They tend to be more vocal and expressive, which the manosphere tend to like deem them as like feminine. But I mean, I won't get into that. But like, you can see, like, usually the MGTOW stuff that gets criticized for is because people are talking, like people are saying this stuff, and like pretty much it comes from, again, the boys who try to find this stuff, like the MGTOW stuff, and they find this stuff. Usually those boys already coming from, like, not traumatized, but like already have experience with women that makes them hate, not hate, but like dislike.
Resent.
Yeah, resent.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then, like, they, like, there's like a group of people, like the original MGTOW folks, they're not necessarily vocal. They're just their own, they just go on their own way, and just, that's what essentially it is to be a man, to go on, men going their own way. I mean, just going by themselves, and
Yeah.
forget people's opinions and whatever. You don't need to express anything. But these kids that trying to adopt this ideology, I call it ideology,
Yeah.
they tend to like be more vocal about it, and then it kind of pretty much strives away from the actual MGTOW, and they just become misogynistic, talking about women are this, women are that. You can, you can state facts, but like, you also cannot be like, well, one, you cannot be too emotional when stating these facts. Like, for instance, like the whole what's the word, like the whole divorce, like one big thing is like the whole divorce rates, right? It's what, like 60, I think. I'm not sure what the last time it was measured, but like,
About
you said
60%. Yeah.
about, yeah. So you have people stating this. Oh, actually, sorry. The statement I want to make clear is that within that 60%, it's about 80% who file for divorces are women, right? So that it's a big number, and kind of towards a specific demographic, which tends to, like, especially if it's a woman that you're targeting with that percentage, and kind of look like, oh, it looks like it looks like a bad light, right? Like, oh, okay,
Right.
like, the majority of divorces are filed by women, right? So it kind of shows something bad, right?
Right.
You can state that and just be, just saying that's what it is, just state that's fact. But you have these kids who state that and then go on the extra mile talking about, because of this, that's why you guys are bad, that's why women sucks, blah 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 blah, and that's where it gets to the point where it's like, okay, you know what, you're fucking up the movement.
Yeah.
So it's like, you have that, and usually, that's not just with that particular community, but it's like many communities have that, right? You have like those bad apples who for some reason tends to be loud, and the loud of like any group, people group, whether it's like the left, the right, conservatives, liberal, you have those extremes that tend to be very loud and shines a bad light on them, whether it's Antifa, whether it's the Proud Boys, or whatever it may be, right?
Right.
And for some reason, those bad apples who are very vocal tend to be the ones who represents the whole whatever community they represent, right? So that tends to happen, and I think right now, especially with like what Andrew Tate, being one of the big what do you call it? I would just call him character.
Yeah.
You know, being blacklisted everywhere, right? So it's like he's an extreme. You have another one like Fresh and Fit's another extreme. But then you actually have other smaller, like I've been following just like you have smaller content creators who are also part of that community, but they're more sane, they're more realistic, they're more level-headed. They're
More
not
neutral.
yeah. So it's like you know there's good things in it. The same thing with like feminism. Like there's good things in feminism, but then you have the extreme who like hates all men. All men are bad. This is like, of course not. But there is, but you know what I mean? It's like that. It's like there's always bad apples in every, people group. And like, it just, it's just shame. I mean, MGTOW and Red Pill has good, it's good. It's really good. It's like a good outlet for men to actually listen to, because like right now there's no avenue for like men to have like a place to talk, like like I remember back in the day, because like right now it's like a little more PC, right, with the whole media and everything, right? So like back in the day I used to have mentors who are not gonna say they're not misogynistic, but like they're like the old school, oh, this is how you pick up girls, this is how you do this, they teach you all of these stuff, right? Nowadays these kids have no no male figure to teach them these things. I mean, unless they have like their father and their uncles or whoever it may be they look up to. But like with the whole PC thing, I call it misandry, right? Towards men, they what's the word? They villainize masculinity, and like it's not necessarily masculinity is the problem. It's just if masculinity is the same. It's the same degree of villainy or whatever you want to call it as feminism. So like it's I guess the point I'm trying to get across is the whole MGTOW Red Pill it's a good thing. Same thing with the feminism. It's just that it has its bad extremes, like like in those two what do you call it? People, communities or whatever.
Yeah, I saw Karina was agreeing to something.
Yes, fuck yes for calling out feminism, because I hate it so much how they're like, come on, and kind of. And it's the whole point of the feminism movement is like literally we want to be equal to men when it comes to like the workplace, pay and stuff like that. And when you're saying like I've seen it where to the point where it's like they want to be above men now. And I hate that, because the whole point is supposed to be we're supposed to fight patriarchy along with men, for men also. Like men are supposed to fight patriarchy too for themselves. And I feel like a lot of feminism, they forget that and they go way too extreme to the point where like it's all men, they're all wrong. I hate men all the way. I hate that so.
The dangerous part is when you get people with that sort of thinking into political positions of power.
I know.
Well, same can go for men as well, but
yeah.
But unless anyone else have anything they wanted to add before we close this up.
Yeah, I'll say something about that. So I've heard a lot of talk so far about, as far as Southern natives go, like how it is a more male-dominated society in Latin America. And I think that might have been to a degree the case when it was just pre-Columbian empires, depending on if it was a matrilineal culture or a patrilineal culture. My people are matrilineal, but when I think about it, and this is not just me as a fat dude, like complaining, it's a well thought out thing. It's not sour grapes here or nothing. When I think about a lot of northern tribal divorces in the past, in the pre-colonial past, it almost kind of felt like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship in the 1990s or onward, to where when it was over, you just packed up your belongings and left, or you packed up your lover's belongings, whatever, whatever form of that you want to do with. But my point is, it almost seems like it was a waste of time to even get married in some of these tribes. Like if you're in a matrilineal tribe, if you're Six Nations, or any other matriarchal tribe, what often happens is when you would traditionally get married, you would move in with the woman's family. And in our case, we have Bear Clan, Turtle Clan, and Wolf Clan. Basically, when a divorce happens, the women also inherit the kids, and the kids go to stay with the mother. And because the dad and the mom's uncle or the mom's brother would be of different clans, so you would be expected to raise somebody within your own clan more than your own children, and vice versa. Like the uncle is the same clan as the mother, and it's passed down to the kids. So in a way, they would have a bit more of a role in raising the kids than the father would. I'm not opposed to mother and fathers having uncles and aunts be secondary parents in a sense, but I think that when you start to undermine the role that men play in creation, you have a big problem. Because like a lot of the gynocentric, and I know that's a word that MGTOWs will be familiar with, but the gynocentric societies, which I think we're like a mix of the patriarchy and gynocentrism. It's kind of weird, but you basically have. Oh God, I'm losing my train of thought. But do you get where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like there's not much incentive in a matriarchal tribe for a man to get married, if knowing what that it could have gone wrong, and it kind of feels similar today in that respect.
Yeah.
I think I can see where you're coming from.
I'm not an anti-marriage myself. It's just I don't think anyone who goes MGTOW that's not like on the incel spectrum has a problem with marriage or relationships. It's just that, do we believe that there are non-toxic relationships out there for if you're dating in the American dating scene? And I think for a lot of us, it's no. We don't believe in unicorns. I'm not anti-love. I'm just saying it's not a top priority right now. And I'm overweight. I'd rather be in shape myself. And I know that it's not something that's not the only thing that matters, but you want to be your best self coming forward, no matter what.
Also, in my head, another thing is like just to piggyback on that. Another thing, what men, who are like in the whole MGTOW, maybe even incels, I'm not too sure, but they're also afraid of like just the whole marriage is being very one-sided when it comes to like the to the whole legal system. Like if when it comes down to a man marrying a woman, they tend to sacrifice a lot more and down the road, so like majority of men who get ends up in divorce tend to lose it's like a very high percentage of them losing. So it's like they can lose. So it's like so that's what kind of pretty much also from what I heard, most the men they're telling me is that they are afraid to even just to they think of marriage as being like a losing they're gonna lose regard you know what I mean, like they're not going to get benefit anything from it. They're just putting themselves in a worse position because at the end of the day the woman has a chance to leave and the court system would like favor them 100%. Most of the time it's close to that. So it's like that's what most men are also from what they're telling me is like they are avoiding just that entirely and just focus on their own, like whether it's getting in shape or improving their financial position and all that.
Yeah, I agree with Plucky. Like men are, from what my husband told me, that one of his biggest fears is me leaving him, and I just want child support, alimony, and he's gonna go broke. And I was just like, what? Why are you talking about that? I will never do that to you. Like I have much respect for you, and I wouldn't do that to you. And he's like, yeah, this is what like a lot of men talk about, like, and I'm so scared that's gonna happen to me one day. And I was just like, oh my god, I cannot believe it. Like, and like even now, like my parents are separated, My dad owes a lot of money and he still hasn't paid. But every now and then, my mom would sneak in some threats where she's like, either you pay child support or I'm gonna call the police and let them know you didn't pay. And so like I can see like why my husband is like so scared that something like that will happen to him one day. And I respect you guys also if y'all have fear for stuff like that, because there is some shady women out there who will put you guys in positions like that. And for me, like I have no respect for women who do stuff like that.
To just make sure, I guess, the advice would be make sure you really like trust someone and love someone and know that it's going to be, you're on the road with this, how would I say, trip of a lifetime with someone. So just better make sure that you really love them and are on the same wavelength and
Yeah.
stays that way.
Or get a prenup.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Or move. In my case, I think move, because I think location might be my problem. Seattle's a bad fit for me. The Northwest is a bad fit for me. So there's always that. I'm not, I think whether you're single or in a relationship, and this goes for women too, just try to be happy on your own first, before you get into it, because like you can't look at another person as completing you. You're already complete, or you should be. So I mean, it's just one of those things where you got to play it by ear. But I mean, don't think that you're lesser just because you're single. Take that time to self-improve.
Yeah, I agree. There's always time for improvement. But yeah, guys, if you guys didn't have anything else, I think I did want to keep this around 2 hours. So a little bit over, no problem. But that being said, I think I'm going to wrap things up on the live stream, or recording, I should say. So I did want to thank you guys for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. No problem. But yeah, I'm going to end this broadcast. And to those watching, thanks for comments and everything else you've done to contribute. So good night or good morning.